Okay, so here on the Entire Life Summit today, I have Chris Williams. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll be glad to get to know you.
Absolutely, Marnie. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on this. And I'm so impressed with you for putting all of this together. Like giving people an opportunity to learn from this many people at once is such a tremendous accomplishment, let alone just the value that everybody's going to get out of this. Just so thrilled.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to watch all the other speakers and learn.
Oh, I know. Some of them, one of them, as I was interviewing her, I liked her lead magnet so much. I'm like, I want that one.
You're gonna do that, right? That's the way I do it all the time. Yeah, I'm always talking to other entrepreneurs on the phone. What are you doing here? And they're like, oh man, that's such a good idea. Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little about me. So
Yeah.
for me, being an entrepreneur, I think is in my blood or in my experience. And I don't think people are necessarily born entrepreneurs, meaning successful or not as entrepreneurs. I think that's a learned skill, but I do think there are some traits, maybe personality pieces or experiential life pieces that build people into what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So for me, early stages of being an entrepreneur was cutting grass. I traded someone a lawnmower to be able to cut their grass all summer long. And then I got to use that lawnmower to go cut other people's grass. And I got to build a lawn business, right? I was 11. And so I already had the work drive. I loved being out and doing something. I had a hard time sitting still, I guess. And that was really beneficial. So when I sold that when I was 21 with 3 crews, the trucks, all the equipment, all that stuff. And that paid a lot of the fun that we had in college and traveling, and my wife and I getting to date and do an enormous amount of cool things and then get married, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
But apart from just the early stages of that journey, learning to sell, get customers, build teams, and all the operational stuff you learn doing any business, I think it's life that crafts us. And many people watching this, because they're entrepreneurs, there's a really consistent data pattern in entrepreneurship. People who are entrepreneurs often come from hard backgrounds. And it's not to say that everyone has to have a hard background to be a successful entrepreneur, but there's something in entrepreneurship that is hard and you have to constantly overcome and build and grow and change. And for me, I came from a really abusive home. There's no other way to say it. Physically and emotionally, spiritually abusive home. And it took decades. If anybody's been there and you're listening or watching in, you know, it takes a long time. You may not have started healing from that. You may be on the journey of healing. You may be through it, but it takes a lot of time and effort. It takes emotional energy. It takes problem solving. It takes that will and determination to overcome and grind through it. Some days you don't think you're going to make it. Some days you know you're going to make it, and there's everything in between.
Yeah.
That's entrepreneurship. That is at its crux what it is. And we have so much to figure out, particularly if you're doing your own thing and not buying someone else's 20-year business that's already running that you're building.
You're creating.
It takes so much effort. Yeah.
It's really cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I come from a similar background, having challenges. But the nice thing is that my family were real entrepreneurs. My grandfather started in the Canadian bush up in Canada with $25.
Wow.
And he was amazing. He ended up being a multimillionaire, and I ended up growing up on a ski area and a summer golf resort. So that was my winter and my summer, right? From something that he created. So yeah, I get you. And then there was, abuse along the way, not from my grandparents at all. They're freaking awesome, but like stepfather and, stuff like that. So I've been there, and I get that. And I think we were talking when I first interviewed you about doing Landmark. That helped me a lot. So yeah, what you're saying is so absolutely true. I love connecting with these speakers and, getting to know you guys. It's so interesting, the thread that runs through them. And end up being a little bit anti-authoritarian.
For sure.
Seems to be one of the things
For
there,
sure, yeah.
and yeah, it's really cool. So I'm proud of us for being entrepreneurs. So
Hmm.
tell us what helps you get clarity?
Good question. So for me, in my busy life, I guess my busy brain more than my life really, for me, clarity comes from being outside. I need sky and I need trees, I need grass, I need water.
Mhm.
I need those natural things around me. That is where I go to live, to breathe. I can feel it emotionally just talking. I'm like picturing myself outside, going outside, going for a hike, a walk, a run, a bike with the dog, probably not with kids. I love my kids. Jill and I have 5. They're fantastic, but it doesn't give you the headspace to be clear, right? If you're running around with a bunch of littles. So it's just time outside for me, and breathing and walking and just stopping to think. When I go out and get clarity, I leave the phone, I leave the headphones, everything stays behind. And I just go to be with my thoughts and with nature. That is where it's at for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the ocean.
Hmm.
I have to be able to see the ocean, or it's like, I don't know. I get sad.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally understand that.
I
Totally.
just have to see my ocean. And I love going out on my deck every day. This morning, actually, I was so sad. We've got a kind of plexiglass along the cliff that runs along our property. And there was a little finch and he had
Oh,
hit it. So we had
wow.
a little finch funeral this morning.
Oh,
But I
too
love
sad.
going up there and listening to the birds and you know, all the flora and the fauna, because the right on the cliff there we've got a beautiful like large area. So yeah,
Wow, that
get
sounds
that.
amazing.
Love that.
We need to do interviews at your house from now on. That should be how we do these interviews.
Oh, absolutely. You can
That
come
sounds
and
amazing.
visit me. You can come and visit me. We've got an epic view here in Solana Beach out over the
Wow,
racetrack and the ocean there. It's
wow.
wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, what about power? You know, as you know, sometimes there are days when we have, you know, days where things just don't go right,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So how do you power through those, or how do you have the willpower to carry on when things get kind of tough? Because they do.
That's a really interesting question. So let me give you a little more background about what I do professionally now, because I think it ties in well to that. I'm an efficiency and team building guy. So I run and own a creative agency. We do full service messaging and marketing for really specialized surgeons and really niche communities, very, very niche down. But but I love the efficiencies and I love the team building piece of that because I love time.
Mhm.
So for me, time is restorative. All right. It gives me time to go outside. I work less than 30 minutes a day probably. And I love teaching and investing in others in my free time.
Mhm.
But when my head gets so caught up in the teaching and training and doing with other people, it starts to get really clouded. And I
Mhm.
start feeling sad and like the old feelings of depression and anxiety that I used to deal with when I was healing from all the trauma, all that starts coming back up. Not trauma, but those old patterns, those, you know, those old ways of thinking are kind of like ruts in the road. And when we start slipping off where we're supposed to be, old things come
They
back.
whisper
And
in your ear.
yeah, mhm, you're right there. So for me, just making sure that I look back at the structures that I'm keeping. There's freedom in structure. And as an entrepreneur, none of us love structure. None of us want to have a boss. None of us want to night. That's prison, right? But the frameworks that we choose are freeing.
They
So
are.
I know. So it's time. Time management always comes back to it. Am I working more hours than I should? Am I, even if I'm only working 30 minutes a day, am
Mhm.
I doing this all day long? Right?
Right.
Staring at my phone. That's working. So I have to be really disciplined to shift back and say, where's the structure? Where are the parameters that are going to keep me safe and keep me heading down a really healthy path?
I remember when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that of Facebook, you only have 2 tabs open
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
part
So
of your
on my
structure.
Chrome browser, yeah. So on my Chrome browser, there are 2 links at the top, little bookmarks. I have my Facebook group that I actually lead
Hmm.
linked there. And then I have a Facebook Messenger page linked there because I enjoy interacting with people through Facebook Messenger, and I enjoy interacting with people in my own group. I do not go anywhere else on Facebook, literally nowhere else except my group and my Messenger to answer questions.
That's
That's it.
awesome. That's
Otherwise, it just
awesome.
drains your soul. I don't know. That's horrible. Sorry, Mark Zuckerberg. It just it's not evil or bad. It just, you get in there and all of a sudden everyone else's creativity and ideas and bests and worsts and all of that are pouring into your heart.
Yeah.
And as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as creative people that we are, we need the heart space to formulate our own ideas so we can lead others. And Facebook or social media platforms are typically the opposite of that.
Right, right. It's about that clarity, right? It
Mm-hmm.
it gives you that clarity by not having a fire hose, you
Mm-hmm.
know, at you.
Yeah.
And so the last piece of it, what about follow through? And it's so funny that you said that there's freedom in structure. I have said that literally 3 or 4 times on this summit, and you said it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, we're all going down the same.
Yeah. It's true.
We know it. And that's it's reassuring to hear, and it should be for all of you attendees, when you hear it, the exact same thread. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it this way. When you hear the exact same things coming through these successful business owners,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
when that thread is constant, that that's a truth,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like the way that I look at religion is where's the commonality between all of them? Okay, there's the truth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I forget everything else. If it's not common, it's just fluff.
Right. That's a really great lead in for what to do. So from an action taking standpoint, when I go to conferences or when I attend a virtual summit like this, 2 things happen in my head. One is I'm blown away by everybody's amazing story and how successful they are and how much they can do and all the things that are so cool. And I want to be like everybody on stage, right? And then I have to get down to brass tacks. And they say that, I forget the numbers, but it's like you lose like 80 to 90% of the information you get within like 12 to 24 hours. So when I'm going to a conference, I am making notes on my laptop or on a piece of paper, whatever, and I'm looking for things that apply to me. And then I go back at the end of each day and I look for the common, like you said, those common threads that apply to me that I've seen in 10 or 12 or 20 leaders, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can find those threads, then I realize that's a consistent pattern that most people are finding success with. And I want to emulate that because that means it's not nuanced to a personality or a time in life or an opportunity they grew up with. It's a common thread.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, when I get that bit of information, then it comes down to execution.
Mm-hmm.
And I teach all the people that I get to lead that execution is really 90% of what we should be doing as entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ideas aren't the thing.
No,
We
they're
actually,
easy.
ideas are like, oh my God, my boyfriend can come up with 15,000 ideas in one day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, okay, well, how are we going to execute that? How are all the little pieces going to come together? And that's a hard part, but the valuable part.
It is getting things done. There's so many books about it. There's so many podcasts. There's so many conversations like this about it. But unfortunately, most of us entrepreneurs, we love learning. We love a new shiny object, and we love going to the next podcast or reading the hottest new book. But really, if you took the best business book you can find today, or the best podcast series that talks like a 3-part, 5-part series about some business fundamental piece, and you spent all of the next year working on that one bit of information and became an expert at that, doing it, changing your life with it, you would get way farther than if you tried to ingest 100 or even 10 leaders' information. So pick one, pick that common thread, determine to do it, set milestones along the way for the next several months, and get it done. And get accountability, find a friend or family, tell them what you're doing, get accountability, and get it done.
Awesome. Awesome. That is such good points there. I totally get that. So tell us, what would you like to give to the attendees today for them to take away so that they can get more information about what you do and how you can help them?
Yes. So in my creative agency, we deal with a lot of surgeons, and I'm assuming there's not a lot of surgeons watching right now. If there are, feel free to reach out. But no, the best thing I can do for entrepreneurs is really our eliteagencymastermind.com website. So eliteagencymastermind.com. That, yes, it's a sales page, it's a funnel, and believe it or not, we've never sold one thing through that page because that is not how you join my mastermind. But it is information about it. But here's why I'm sending people there. The very top of that page has a scoring video where we actually walk you through how to score your agency or your business. It works for any business. I've been using it for years. It's a series of questions, and I walk you through the questionnaire right there on screen. You can take out a piece of paper and follow along, and you can find out where you're weak or where you're strong in your business in the areas of profitability, processes, and people. And then you can really narrow down and take what you're learning from this summit and say, here's that common thread that deals with profitability or processes or people, whatever. And here's why I should focus on it and what I should focus on first. Just kind of helps you bring clarity to that, because clarity is that strategy piece that we should spend about 5% of our life on.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets down to execution. So go through the little training, get clarity, and then do the freaking work. Do the work, get results every time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
You have
So
been,
glad to be here.
Yeah, you've been a real joy to interview today, and all the best to you going forward.
Thanks so much, Marnie. See you, everybody.
You bet.